Hi, I am Kimmy with On William Street, and we are here to help you become a more confident quilter, from the piecing to the quilting and everything in between. So this week we are going to share how you can make an easy and cheap portable design wall. So when we moved from Phoenix to St. George, we went from a very large house with extra bedrooms to a not quite so large house with no extra bedrooms. So I find myself in need of more of a portable sewing space, something that I can pull out and put away as needed, but I really miss having my designed wall. It was really nice to have a space to put projects that were in progress, to hang things up and to see them. So today we're gonna go ahead and build a portable design wall. And the nice thing about this project is you can make it great big or you can make it smaller. So it's gonna fit your space. Also, if you want one that you can actually take with you when you go places, like quilting retreats, sew days, you can make it a much smaller one that you can still set up in a smaller space. So it's very flexible. So the things we're gonna need to make our design wall is we're just gonna be using flannel. This does not have to be fancy, expensive flannel. Go to your local store, buy whatever is available. Shouldn't be more than a few dollars a yard. The other thing that we're gonna need is we are going to need a sheet of foam insulation. So this is a great big foam board. I have the 1 inch thick. You wanna make sure that it's thick enough that it has some stability. Don't go for the 1/2 inch. It's not gonna have a whole lot of strength, but it's very cheap. This is 12 bucks. For this entire sheet. And if you want, like I said, if you wanted to make a great big 8x8 design wall, you absolutely could. And it would only be about $25 for the 2 boards. This is 4x8. We're not gonna be using the whole board. However, I'm gonna cut it down. Our wall is gonna be about 4x6 is what my final dimension is gonna be. So we need to cut this. But it's not going to be complicated. I'm just going to grab a knife, a palette knife, and then a square, just to make things easier. And then I also have measuring tape. I do know what it's called. And I'm going to actually be cutting mine in half and making it so that it is 3x4 when it's all folded up, just so that it's easier to store and easier to move. So to do that, we're also going to need some packing tape. This is the shipping tape, so it's nice and flexible. You could also use duct tape, would work just as well. And to help it stay open, I have some Velcro, and this is pre-sticky Velcro, so you don't need to worry about how to attach it. If you have the Velcro that is not pre-sticky, you could certainly glue it and not worry about buying new. So now let's go ahead and lay out, and first off, we're gonna cut the foam board. So like I said, this is very easy to cut, is literally just foam. It might make a little bit of a mess, but also remember whatever you're cutting on, you might scratch the surface underneath. So put something underneath of you that you're okay cutting on. You could even just use your cutting mat from your quilting. Just make sure that you move it around so it stays underneath whatever you're cutting. So the first thing I'm gonna do is grab my measuring tape, and I'm just gonna measure up 6 feet from the bottom. And I'm actually just going to use my knife to mark it. And there's actually a line here, a thing of pluses. This set is pre-marked, so it makes it really nice. So now that I know what one I'm gonna use, we're just going to go ahead and using my square, and the reason I'm using a square is because it's bigger and I don't have to worry about cutting it with the knife. It's made for things like this. And we're just going to trim along the edge there. Scoot over. I'm not going all the way through right now, so I don't have anything underneath, but I'm okay with that because I'm just going through the top layer at this point. All right, so now that I have it through the top layer, I'm actually going to move it off to the edge of my table. And if your palette knife doesn't go out far enough, you could also use a kitchen knife for this. All right, so I've gone ahead and I've moved it off the edge of my table. So now I don't have to worry about cutting through my table. And my palette knife didn't quite go through the full 1 inch. So I'm actually just going to grab my kitchen knife. And you can see I've already got that line there now. And just push through and cut it. After I have the 6 feet cut down, I'm going to repeat the process so that I have 2 3-foot by 4-foot sections. Like I said, you could leave this all as one piece. You don't necessarily have to cut it in half, but by cutting it in half, I'm just making it smaller so that it's easier to take places. It will fit in my car easier, it will fit under the bed easier, in a closet, wherever you're storing it. Now what I'm gonna do so that it will fold is I'm gonna be taping it back together, but I'm only going to tape it on one side. If you tape it on both sides, it's not going to fold. So that's where something like the strapping packing tape or your duct tape or a little bit of a heavier duty tape that's nice and flexible is gonna come in handy. And I'm just going to go all the way down, but I'm not going to go over the side. I'm not gonna go off the edge. You just want it to be on the top of the sheet. Get that nice and taped down. And so now you can see it folds in half quite easily, but we don't want it to fold in half too easily, so we're going to add one more thing. So now I'm going to go ahead and grab my Velcro, and that's going to help it stay open when I'm not using it, and when I'm using it. So I do have the Velcro that is pre-stickied. So if you have this one side of it, we don't need to take the sticky off, so either leave it on, leave the cover on there, or else you can take it off and stick it on a piece of paper or something, just so you don't have to deal with that sticky. The other one, I'm going to cut them in half because I want half of the Velcro to go on either side of the board. It doesn't really matter where. I'm just gonna go down about 1/3 on both of them, and just make sure that you're not going over that crease, that you're leaving a little bit of a space in between that. And just go ahead and put the 2 bits of Velcro on there. And then I've got my other half. And so this, when you're using it, you can stick it on there, and that's going to prevent it from bending as well. It's gonna give it a little bit of extra stability there. And then when you're not using it and you want to bend it, you can easily take it off and just stick it on one of the sides for storing. So that's just gonna give you a little bit of extra stability in keeping it when it's up, especially if you have it so that the seam runs horizontal instead of vertical. Now we are ready to add the fabric. So I'm just going to move this down out of the way for a second. And we're gonna lay the fabric down. I did have to sew mine. That is why we added the Velcro. Okay, so I did have to sew mine in half, sew mine together. I went with 3 yards? No, pretty certain I have 4 yards here. I'm gonna look at my tag and tell you how many I bought. I bought 3 yards of fabric to go on my 4x6 board. So I'm just gonna lay it down, and I am going to go ahead and put the seam in the center of my table, because that's gonna make sure that I get it centered on the board. And then take it, and then the same thing. Just put the seam right on the part where you cut, and then all we have to do now is tape it or glue it. I'm just gonna use packing tape, but you could also glue it as well all the way around the foam core. So now that we have it all put on, we do need to go ahead and deal with the seams along here, and we do need to cut those open. So I have the selvages so that it's nice and finished. I'm just being careful to basically cut the seam that I sewed, and that's going to make sure that we can still fold it. If we have that closed there, we're going to run into the same problem before where it doesn't fold. So you just need to go down and just cut that until the front. And then if you want to, after it's folded, you could add a little bit more tape in place there to keep it from unraveling. And then I just need to do the same thing on this side. Make sure that there's no tape or fabric going over that seam. So now we have our board. And your quilting projects will stick to this really nicely, your blocks. So you can see we've got our board that will fold in half nicely for storage, or you can unfold it and close it with the Velcro so that you don't have to worry about it closing on you while you're using it. And this whole project costs less than $25. And now I finally have a design wall again I can set up and fold up and put away when I need to, but still have that visual when I'm working on my projects. So don't forget, if you liked what you saw, to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can hit the bell so that you're notified whenever we post a new video. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram where we share all of our projects. And if you subscribe to our email newsletter, you'll gain access to the subscriber library on our website, where you'll get free patterns and extra goodies that we share specifically with our email subscribers. So happy quilting. We'll see you next week.